The Christmas blizzard turned the Afghan mountains into a howling white void. Bravo team had been deployed to extract 3 hostages from a militant stronghold perched high on the ridgeline, and when they learned their Overwatch sniper was a 19-year-old girl, the entire squad erupted in bitter laughter. This had to be the worst holiday joke of the season, but as freezing wind tore through the valley and the Barrett M107 thundered through curtains of snow, targets dropped at distances even veteran SEAL snipers wouldn't dare attempt. That Christmas night, they witnessed a record shattered by a teenage girl who treated impossible shots like geometry problems. The operations center at Forward Operating Base Sentinel was decorated with nothing but frost and frustration. Outside, Christmas Eve snow fell in thick sheets that turned the compound into a frozen maze. Inside, Bravo team gathered around a tactical display showing the hostage location, a fortified compound carved into the mountainside 12 kilometers north. Commander Jake Thornton studied the topographical map with growing dread. 3 aid workers captured 4 days ago. Intelligence suggested execution within 24 hours. The storm had grounded air support, and the terrain was a nightmare. Vertical rock faces, swirling winds, visibility measured in arm lengths. "We've got Overwatch support inbound," Thornton announced, his breath misting in the cold room. "ETA, 5 minutes." The team exchanged glances. Overwatch meant a sniper, which meant someone skilled enough to provide cover fire across impossible terrain during a blizzard. That lifted spirits marginally until the door opened. She was small, barely 5'4", with dark blonde hair pulled into a tight braid, wearing gear that looked oversized. The Barrett M107 anti-material rifle strapped to her back was nearly as tall as she was. She couldn't have weighed more than 120, and the rifle alone was 30 pounds without ammunition. "Bravo team," her voice was steady, professional. "I'm Ava Hale, your long-range support." The room went silent for 3 seconds. Then someone laughed. "You're kidding," Sergeant Ryan Blackwood said. "They sent us a kid?" "A girl kid," another operator added. "What is she? 19? 19 and a half, Ava corrected, setting down her pack. The thud echoed through the room. More laughter rippled through the team. Marcus Chen, their primary sniper, shook his head. "Kid, that Barrett probably weighs more than you do. Have you even fired one in combat?" "Yes, sir. 6 years ago." The laughter died briefly, then returned louder. 6 years ago, she would have been 13. But Commander Thornton noticed something others didn't. While they laughed, Ava had moved to the equipment table and begun field stripping her rifle with mechanical precision. Her hands moved without hesitation, released the bolt carrier, checked the chamber, inspect the muzzle brake. She worked with the efficiency of someone who'd performed these actions 10,000 times. "Hale," Thornton said quietly, "what's your effective range?" She didn't look up. "In these conditions, sir, I'll need to calculate wind shear, snow density, and thermal layers, but I can provide accurate fire support out to 2,200 meters. The room exploded in derision. 2,200? Chen couldn't contain himself. "Listen, kid, I've been shooting for 12 years, and in a blizzard, I wouldn't guarantee anything past 1,000. Ava finished reassembling the Barrett and locked eyes with him. Her gaze was unsettling, not defiant, just absolutely certain. "I see wind and snow like straight lines, Sergeant. Everything moves in patterns. You just have to read them." Blackwood snorted. "Patterns. Right. What are you, some kind of math genius?" "Fluid dynamics, actually," she said, pulling out a custom-modified scope. "But yes, there's a lot of math." Thornton studied her more carefully now. The way she handled that massive rifle like it was an extension of her body. The calm in her voice despite being mocked. The scope she'd just attached had custom modifications for snow refraction. "Bravo team," he said sharply. "Get ready. We insert in 30 minutes. Hale, you're with Chen on Overwatch." "Commander," Chen protested, "with all respect." 30 minutes, Sergeant. That's an order." As the team dispersed, Thornton pulled up Ava's personnel file on his tablet. What he saw made his blood run cold. Most of it was redacted. Black bars covered entire sections. The only clear information: recruited at 17, specialized training in long-range ballistics, and a single recommendation from someone whose name was also redacted. She reads weather like others read books. If she says she can make the shot, believe her. Outside, the blizzard intensified, and Thornton wondered if he'd just made the best or worst decision of his career. The MH-47 Chinook shuddered violently as it pushed through the storm. Inside the cargo bay, Bravo team sat in grim silence, faces illuminated by red night vision lights. The helicopter bucked and swayed, and through the open windows, nothing was visible except swirling white chaos. Ava sat near the rear, eyes closed, one hand resting on her Barrett case. She appeared to be sleeping, which annoyed the team more. But she wasn't sleeping. She was calculating. Wind speed at ground level, approximately 30 knots from the northwest. But what mattered were the wind layers, the thermal boundaries, where cold air met warm, where moisture content changed. She visualized the mountain as a three-dimensional grid, with wind vectors flowing through it. Getting choppy, the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Gonna try to find a thermal pocket. The helicopter lurched sickeningly left. Someone cursed. Ava's eyes snapped open. Pilot, descend 200 feet and bank right 15 degrees. The entire team stared at her. What? Blackwood said. Kid, let the professionals. The high-altitude wind shear is creating a downdraft. Ava continued, her voice cutting through the engine noise. But there's a pressure trough along the eastern ridge that'll give you smoother air. 200 feet down, 15 degrees right. The pilot hesitated. Command, I've got the kid saying. Just do it, Thornton snapped. The Chinook dove and banked. For a sickening moment, they were falling through pure turbulence, then suddenly, the shaking stopped. The helicopter glided smooth as glass. I'll be damned, the pilot breathed. How did you? Wind patterns, Ava said simply. They're just math. Chen stared at her with new wariness. That wasn't a lucky guess. They descended to the drop zone, a small plateau 3 kilometers from the target. The ramp lowered, and Arctic air blasted into the cabin. They moved out into a landscape that looked alien. Snow fell so thick it created curtains in the air. Visibility was 20 feet on a good moment. Temperature read -15 Celsius, but with wind chill, it felt like -30. Spread out, Thornton ordered. Chen, Hale, find high ground. Everyone else, on me. They'd barely moved 200 meters when muzzle flashes erupted from behind ice-covered boulders. The ambush was small, maybe 4 hostiles, but in zero visibility, it might as well have been 40. Bravo team hit the ground, returning fire blindly. Can't see anything, Blackwood shouted. They're using the snow for cover. Chen scrambled for his rifle, but the wind and snow made accurate shooting impossible. Boom. The Barrett's report was like thunder. Even through the wind, the massive rifle's distinctive sound was unmistakable. One muzzle flash disappeared. Boom. Another hostile down. Boom. A third. Boom. Silence, except for howling wind. Clear, Ava's voice came through the radio. Calm. 4 targets neutralized. You can advance. Chen moved forward cautiously until he found the bodies. 4 hostiles, each with a single, 50 caliber round through center mass. In near zero visibility, at approximately 300 meters, he keyed his radio with shaking hands. Command. Targets confirmed. 4 for 4. Copy that, Thornton replied. Then, after a pause, outstanding shooting, Hale. Thank you, sir. Chen looked back toward where Ava had set up. Though he couldn't see her through the storm, the math genius comment suddenly made sense. This wasn't just marksmanship. This was something approaching supernatural. Blackwood appeared beside him, staring at the bodies. Okay, he said quietly, so maybe the kid can shoot a little. They continued toward the objective, but the atmosphere had shifted. The jokes had stopped. When Ava's voice came over the radio now, they listened. Because somewhere in that frozen hellscape, a 19-year-old girl with a rifle bigger than herself had just saved their lives. The militant compound revealed itself gradually, not as a building, but as a constellation of red lights burning against the white void. Emergency lamps, guard towers, searchlights, sweeping mechanically through the storm. It looked like something from a nightmare, a hellish Christmas tree perched on a cliff edge. Bravo team established position behind a rock formation 800 meters from the main gate. From here, they could see the basic layout. 3 buildings arranged in a U-shape around a central courtyard, guard towers at each corner, vehicle garage on the eastern side. Thornton pulled out his spotting scope. but the snow made detailed observation nearly impossible. I count at least 15 hostiles on exterior patrol. Probably more inside. Thermal imaging is useless, Chen reported. Too much interference. The hostages are in the western building, basement level, Thornton continued, studying intelligence photos. Extraction point is on the southern ridge, but we'll need to cross 600 meters of open ground. In this weather? Blackwood shook his head. We'll be sitting ducks, which is why we need Overwatch to thin their numbers first. Thornton turned to where Ava had set up position on a rise overlooking the valley. Hale, what's your assessment? Through the scope, Ava studied the compound with analytical intensity. She wasn't looking at buildings or guards, she was looking at how wind moved, snow around structures, how temperature gradients created by lights affected air density, how terrain channeled wind patterns. Sir, I can provide cover fire from this position. Effective range to the main gate is 1,900 meters. Wind is chaotic but follows a cyclic pattern, strong gusts every 45 seconds, with calmer periods between. If we time the assault to those calm periods, I can guarantee suppressive fire. Guarantee is a strong word, Hale. Yes, sir, it is. Chen, lying beside her, studied the compound through his own scope. At 1,900 meters, in a blizzard, even hitting a building would be impressive. Hitting individual targets would be nearly impossible. Kid, Ava, I've been doing this for over a decade. Those shots you made earlier were incredible, but this is different. You're talking about sustained fire at nearly 2 kilometers in hurricane conditions. Ava didn't take her eye from the scope. The conditions are actually favorable, Sergeant. The snow is falling vertically with minimal horizontal drift, which means wind shear is isolated to specific altitude bands. The compound lights create thermal updrafts that further stabilize the air. I've already mapped 17 usable firing windows. 17, Chen stopped. You've been watching for 10 minutes. 12 minutes. The pattern repeats every 3 minutes with minor variations. He didn't know what to say. This wasn't normal sniper work. This was some kind of savant-level weather reading combined with mathematical precision. Thornton made his decision. All right, Hale, you're our guardian angel. Your job is to neutralize tower guards, suppress courtyard patrols, and keep us alive. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Chen, you stay with her as spotter. Roger that. Thornton checked his watch. It's 2,300 hours on Christmas Eve. Let's bring those people home. Bravo team, prepare to move on Hale's mark. The team began their descent, leaving Ava and Chen alone on the ridge. Wind howled around them, and snow piled against their prone bodies. Ava made minute adjustments to her scope, compensating for distance, wind, temperature, humidity, even the Coriolis effect. Her fingers moved across adjustment dials with practiced precision, each click a calculated response to variables most snipers never considered. You really think you can make these shots? Chen asked quietly. I don't think, Sergeant. I calculate. She paused. My father taught me that thinking introduces doubt. Calculation provides certainty. Your father was a sniper? The best, her voice carried weight. Charlie Hale. Maybe you heard of him. Chen went very still. He had heard that name. Everyone in special operations had heard that name. Charlie Ghost Hale. Legendary sniper, holder of multiple records, MIA 6 years ago during a classified operation. Oh my God, Chen breathed. Your Ghost's daughter. Yes, sir. He trained you. Every day from age 10 until he deployed on his last mission. I was 13. Suddenly, everything made sense. The supernatural calm, the mathematical precision, the way she handled the Barrett like it was part of her body. She'd been raised by a legend, trained by the best, and she'd had 6 years to honor his memory. Why didn't you say anything? Chen asked. Would it have mattered? You were going to judge me anyway. She adjusted her position. Stand by. Bravo team is approaching the perimeter. Chen switched to his spotter scope, his role suddenly feeling far more important. He wasn't babysitting a rookie. He was supporting a precision instrument built from grief, mathematics, and a ghost's legacy. Wind calm period in 30 seconds, Ava said, her voice dropping into that eerie calculating mode. First target, North Tower, guard with thermal scope. Second target, South Tower, guard with radio. Both must go down simultaneously or they'll alert the compound. Copy. Range? 1920 meters and 1918 meters respectively. Chen felt sweat forming despite the freezing cold. Nearly 2 kilometers, 2 targets, simultaneous, in a blizzard. 15 seconds, Ava breathed. 10 seconds, wind dropping. Chen watched the snow change patterns, falling straighter. 5 seconds. Acquiring first target. Through his scope, Chen could barely make out the tower guard, just a shape. A shadow. Wind calm. Taking shot. The Barrett roared, dragon's breath of fire and thunder. Before the sound finished echoing, Ava had chambered another round, shifted aim, and fired again. 2 seconds, 2 shots, 2 towers. Targets down, Chen confirmed, his voice shaking. Both confirmed kills. Bravo team. You are clear to advance, Ava said calmly. Next window, in 43 seconds. And that's when the real shooting began. The compound erupted into chaos as Bravo team breached the perimeter. Guards scrambled from buildings, shouting in Arabic, trying to organize defense against an enemy they couldn't see. Searchlights swept frantically through the snow, revealing nothing but swirling flakes. From nearly 2 kilometers away, Ava watched through her scope like a conductor preparing to lead an orchestra. Contact, Eastern Courtyard, Chen reported. 4 hostiles behind concrete barriers. I see them. Ava's voice was flat, emotionless. Wind window in 3 seconds. The Barrett spoke its thunder, and 1 hostile disappeared. Boom. Another guard down. Boom. The 3rd collapsed. The 4th hostile panicked and ran toward the building. Ava tracked his movement, adjusting for his speed, the wind, his likely direction change. Boom. He fell 10 meters from the door. Multiple targets emerging from the garage. Thornton's voice crackled. They're moving toward our position with heavy weapons. Ava swung the Barrett toward the garage entrance. Through storm and distance, she could see muzzle flashes, squad automatic weapons, possibly machine guns. At this range, they couldn't see Bravo team yet, but they would in seconds. She aimed not at the hostiles, but at the vehicles behind them, a technical truck with a mounted gun, fuel drums stacked nearby. Boom. The .50 caliber round punched through the truck's fuel tank. Boom. The second round hit a fuel drum. The explosion was massive, a ball of orange fire that turned night into day. The shockwave scattered hostiles like bowling pins, and the technical truck collapsed in burning wreckage that blocked the garage entrance. Holy Blackwood's voice was breathless. Keep moving, Thornton ordered. We're approaching the western building. Chen was no longer just spotting. He was watching history. In 12 years as a SEAL sniper, he'd never witnessed shooting like this. Every round Ava fired found its target despite conditions that should have made accurate shooting impossible. How are you doing this? He asked during a brief lull. Ava cycled another round, her movements mechanical. Everything moves in patterns, Sergeant. Wind, snow, people, they all follow predictable paths. I just calculate where those paths intersect with my bullet's trajectory. Your father teach you that? He taught me to see the patterns. I taught myself the math. Sniper on the roof. Thornton's voice cut through. He's got us pinned. Ava swung her scope to the western building's rooftop. Through the snow, she could see muzzle flash another trained shooter, firing controlled bursts. Range, 2,100 meters. Wind, moderate gust, northeast. Snow, heavy, visibility near zero. Target, moving, trained, using cover effectively. This was a shot even her father would have called low percentage. Ava? Chen's voice was uncertain. Can you... Wind window in 5 seconds. I need absolute silence. Chen held his breath as Ava made microscopic adjustments. She wasn't just aiming at where the sniper was. She was aiming at a point in space and time where multiple variables would intersect perfectly. 3 seconds. The world seemed to pause. 1 second. Boom. Through the scope, Chen watched the hostile sniper's head snap back, then watched his body tumble from the roof. Sniper down, Ava reported. Bravo team is clear to breach. Thornton's team crashed through the entrance. For 60 seconds, there was only wind and distant gunfire from inside. Then Thornton's voice, tight with stress. We've got a problem. The hostages aren't here. Say again? Chen replied. The holding room is empty. Evidence they were moved recently. Ava scanned the compound through her scope, her mind racing. If the hostages had been moved recently, they'd either been taken deeper underground or the eastern building, she said suddenly. Underground garage exit. I saw heat signatures earlier that didn't match normal guard rotations. You saw that from 2 kilometers away? Thornton asked. The thermal differential in the snowmelt patterns, sir. Someone drove a vehicle out of that garage within the last 90 minutes. There was a pause. Chen, is she serious right now? Sir, Chen said carefully. I'm starting to think this kid could tell you what someone had for breakfast by looking at their footprints. All right. Moving to Eastern Building. Hale, keep us covered. But as Bravo team emerged from the western structure and began crossing the courtyard, everything went to hell. The compound's remaining forces, at least 20 hostiles, poured out of the eastern building, laying down, suppressing fire. From the northern ridge, a mortar team opened fire, shells exploding in the courtyard, and somewhere in the chaos, Ava's position was finally spotted. We've got return fire, Chen shouted as bullets whined past. They've pinpointed us. A mortar round landed 50 meters upslope. Chen, fall back, Ava ordered. Get to secondary position. Not without you. I said fall back. They need me here. Another mortar round, closer. Chen was a trained SEAL who followed orders, but every instinct screamed at him not to leave this teenager alone. Ava settled deeper into position, her focus absolute. Through the scope, she could see the mortar team adjusting their aim. She had maybe 2 minutes before they bracketed her position, which meant she had 2 minutes to save Bravo team. The Barrett sang its thunder, and down in the compound, the mortar team's spotter collapsed. Boom. The primary mortarman. Boom. The ammunition bearer. The mortars went silent. Ava swept her scope across the courtyard, prioritizing targets. Squad leader first, squad automatic weapon second, RPG operator third. 3 seconds. 3 shots. 3 targets eliminated. Advancing. Thornton called out, and Bravo team pushed forward under cover of Ava's relentless fire. Chen, who had retreated only 30 meters before stopping, watched in pure amazement. He'd seen legendary snipers work before. He'd trained with the best, but he'd never seen anyone do what Ava was doing, turning an entire battlefield into a shooting gallery, reading wind and chaos like a language only she understood. His radio crackled. This is Thornton. We're inside the eastern building. Hostages located. They're alive, but we need immediate extraction. The place is rigged to blow. Roger that, Chen responded. How long? Demolition charges are on a timer. 8 minutes. 8 minutes to get 3 civilians and 6 SEAL operators across 600 meters of open terrain to extraction. And then Chen heard the sound that made his blood freeze. Helicopter rotors. Eyes up, he shouted. We've got air contact. Through the storm, a Soviet-era Mi-17 helicopter lifted from behind the eastern building, its searchlight cutting through snow. On its side, mounted through the open cargo door, a PKM machine gun pointed downward. And there, visible through the helicopter's window, were the hostages, 3 terrified civilians being used as human shields. The Mi-17 banked toward the southern ridge, beginning its escape. Negative on engagement. Thornton's voice was desperate. Hostages are on board. Do not fire. I've got the shot, Ava said quietly. Everyone on the radio channel went silent. Hale, Thornton said carefully. That helicopter is moving at approximately 100 knots through a blizzard at 1,500 meters and climbing. Even if you could hit it, the crash would kill the hostages. Sir, I'm not shooting the helicopter. Then what? The tail rotor assembly, specifically the pitch control mechanism on the starboard side. If I disable it without destroying it, the pilot will lose directional control but maintain vertical lift. He'll be forced to auto-rotate down to the nearest flat ground, the southern plateau, right where our extraction point is. Chen stared at her. That's impossible. Ava was already making adjustments. My father used to say that Christmas is the day for impossible things, Sergeant. The helicopter was accelerating, already 500 meters away and climbing. Range, 2,200 meters and increasing. Target, moving at high speed, multiple axes of motion. Wind, extreme and chaotic due to rotor wash interacting with storm winds. Margin for error, 0. Hit too high, she'd kill the pilot. Too low, she'd hit the fuel tank. Ava, Chen's voice was soft. "You don't have to do this. Nobody could make this shot." She thought of her father Ghost, who had taught her that every shot was just a math problem. She thought of thousands of hours at the range, learning to read wind and snow. She thought of 3 innocent people about to disappear into the mountains. "Everyone clear the channel," she said. "I need absolute silence." The radio went quiet. On the mountainside, even the wind seemed to pause. Ava's world contracted to the scope's view. The helicopter was a dark shape against white sky, rotors churning snow into spirals. She calculated wind vectors, altitude effects, the Coriolis drift, the helicopter's acceleration curve, the material composition of the tail rotor housing. 20 seconds until the helicopter would be out of practical range. 15 seconds. Her finger rested gently on the trigger, waiting for the moment when all variables aligned. 10 seconds. The helicopter banked slightly, presenting the tail rotor assembly in profile. 5 seconds. The wind dropped to a relative calm, one of those periodic gaps she'd identified. 2 seconds. Everything lined up. Distance, wind, movement, angle. 0 seconds. Boom. The Barrett's thunder rolled across the valley, and 2.3 seconds later, the .50 caliber round covered 2,320 meters of mountainous terrain through a Christmas blizzard to strike the tail rotor's pitch control mechanism with surgical precision. The helicopter didn't explode. It simply began to spin slowly at first, then faster as the pilot lost directional control. Through her scope, Ava watched the pilot fight the spin, trying to maintain altitude. He was good. He understood immediately what had happened and began the auto-rotation procedure. The Mi-17 descended in a controlled spiral, fighting the spin, bleeding altitude gradually. It touched down hard on the southern plateau, skids bending but holding. The radio exploded with voices. "Did she just? That's not possible. Confirm hostages are alive. I'm looking at the wreckage. They're climbing out. All 3 hostages. They're okay." Chen lowered his scope with shaking hands. He'd been a SEAL sniper for 12 years. He'd made shots that earned medals. And he'd just witnessed a 19-year-old girl make a shot that would be talked about for 50 years. "Ava," he said quietly. "That was a 2.6-second flight time with a 47-knot crosswind component," she replied, already packing her gear. "The math worked out." "The math?" He laughed, slightly hysterical. "You just made the most impossible shot in SEAL history." She looked at him then, and for the first time, he saw not the calculating machine, but the teenager who'd lost her father. "Sergeant, it's always just math. That's what keeps you sane when everything else is crazy." Down in the compound, Bravo team was moving toward the crashed helicopter, securing the hostages. But their work wasn't finished yet. "Contact," Thornton's voice cracked. "Remaining hostiles are retreating to prepared positions." Ava had already redeployed the Barrett. She could see the tactical problem. Hostile forces had fallen back to hardened bunkers with excellent cover. And the demolition charges were still counting down. 5 minutes remaining. "Chen," Ava said calmly, "I need you to run." "What?" "Get to the extraction point. You need to coordinate air support. I need to move positions to get the angle on those bunkers." Chen understood. The western ridge was 800 meters away, across exposed terrain, while hostiles searched for her position. "That's suicide," he said flatly. "No, Sergeant, that's math. She was already moving. Go, trust the math." Chen wanted to argue, but he was watching her work, seeing how she moved with terrain, using snow and shadows. "Don't you dare die," he said finally. "Not planning on it, sir." Ava moved through the storm like something inhuman, the 40-pound Barrett and gear seemingly weightless. Most people would have been exhausted carrying that equipment 100 meters. She was running with it. 4 minutes. The hostile forces didn't see her not because she was particularly stealthy, but because she'd calculated their sight lines, their patrol patterns, their likely positions. She moved through gaps in their awareness. 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Her legs burned, the cold bit through her gear, but pain was just data, divorced from importance. Her father had taught her that how to compartmentalize discomfort. 3 minutes. She reached the western ridge and threw herself into position behind a boulder. Her hands moved automatically, deploying the Barrett, setting up the scope. Perfect. She could see directly into the bunkers. 2 minutes 40 seconds until detonation. In position, she reported calmly. Targets? Thornton asked urgently. Through the scope, Ava counted hostile positions. 7 confirmed in the northern bunker complex. Probably 3 more I can't see. Can you? Yes, sir. She didn't wait for the rest. The math was already done. 7 shots, approximately 12 seconds per shot. Wind favorable, range optimal. Boom. The first hostile fell. Boom. The second went down before the first hit the ground. The remaining hostiles tried to take deeper cover, but Ava had calculated those angles. The western ridge gave her perfect diagonal view. Boom, boom, boom. Chen, watching from extraction, understood what he was seeing. This wasn't normal sniper work. This was art, mathematical precision and supernatural awareness, transcending typical marksmanship. Boom, boom. Northern bunkers clear, Ava reported. Bravo team, you have a window. 90 seconds until detonation. Thornton didn't waste time. Move, move, move. Bravo team sprinted from the courtyard with the 3 hostages, racing toward the southern plateau where the crashed helicopter sat. But there was one more problem. Contact right, Blackwood shouted. Reinforcements from the eastern road. A technical truck appeared, its mounted machine gun already firing. These weren't the compound's defenders, these were external fighters arriving too late. I've got them, Ava said. But she didn't shoot the fighters. She shot the road. The technical was racing along a mountain path with a sharp drop-off. Ava put 3 rounds into the roadbed 15 meters ahead, each impact sending cracks spiderwebbing through frozen ground. The 4th round punched through the structural weak point. The road collapsed. The technical tried to brake, but momentum carried it forward, and the vehicle plunged off the mountain path. How did you know that would work? Chen asked, amazed. Ice fracture patterns, Ava replied. The road was cantilevered over a natural void. It just needed the right stress point. 30 seconds. Bravo team reached the crashed helicopter, where the 3 hostages huddled. Extraction birds inbound, Chen reported. ETA, 2 minutes. 20 seconds. Ava remained on the western ridge, scopes still to eye. 10 seconds. Ava! Chen's voice was urgent. Get out of there! 5 seconds. She shouldered the Barrett and ran, using terrain as cover. 0. The compound erupted in massive explosions that lit the mountainside. Buildings collapsed, ammunition stores detonated, and a mushroom cloud rose into the storm. The shockwave caught Ava mid-stride and threw her into a snowbank. For a moment, she lay there, ears ringing, checking her body analytically. Left arm, bruised but functional. Right leg, twisted ankle, minor. Head, slight concussion probable. Barrett, undamaged. Mission, successful. She stood, brushed snow off her gear, and began limping toward extraction. 2 Black Hawks appeared through the storm. They touched down, and Bravo team began loading hostages. Thornton was helping the last aid worker when he saw Ava emerge from the storm, the massive rifle still on her back, limping but moving. Hale! He ran toward her. Are you injured? Minor contusion, sir. Nothing requiring immediate attention. He stared at this impossibly composed teenager who just systematically dismantled an entire militant compound from 2 kilometers away. That was, he searched for words, that was the most extraordinary shooting I've ever witnessed. Thank you, sir. The helicopter shot, that's going to be legendary. It was just geometry, sir. Thornton laughed despite himself. Just geometry. Right. He put a hand on her shoulder. Come on, kid. Let's get you home. They climbed aboard the Black Hawk, and, as the helicopter lifted into the storm, Ava looked back at the burning compound. 3 innocent people were safe. Bravo team was intact. The mission was successful. The math had worked out. She closed her eyes and let exhaustion claim her. Forward operating base Sentinel looked different when they returned. The Christmas decorations that had seemed forced on Christmas Eve now felt appropriate. Someone had strung lights. There was a small tree in the mess hall. The hostages had been medevaced. The mission was being declassified, and Ava was receiving the Navy Cross. She stood at attention in her dress uniform, looking uncomfortable, while an admiral read her citation. The language was sanitized, Extraordinary heroism, exceptional marksmanship, life-saving actions, but everyone who'd been there knew the real story. After the ceremony, Chen found Ava standing alone in front of a photo, the one of her father. Charlie Ghost Hale looked exactly like she'd described. Calm eyes, slight smile, holding a rifle like it was part of his body. He'd be proud, Chen said quietly. I know. Ava's voice was soft. I finally believe that now. What's next for you, Snowhawk? She considered the question. Bravo team requested me permanently. Command approved. So I guess more missions, more impossible shots, more math. That's not what I meant. Chen gestured at the photo. Your father was a legend. You've already surpassed him. What do you want for yourself? Ava was quiet for a long moment. I want to make sure no one else loses their father because we couldn't make the impossible shot. I want to be the person who brings everyone home safely. That's a heavy burden. My father carried it for 20 years. I can carry it for a while. Chen smiled. When you first showed up on Christmas Eve, we thought you were a joke. The worst holiday present Command could have sent. And now? Now we're terrified of working without you. You've ruined normal snipers for us. Ava finally smiled, a real, genuine smile that made her look her age. It's not easy, Sergeant. I just make it look like it is. That's what legends do, Snowhawk. As they walked out together, heading back to whatever mission came next, Ava touched the Snowhawk hat in her pocket, the one Bravo team had given her that Christmas night. She'd been 19 years old when she made the impossible shot. She'd been mocked, doubted, and underestimated. But she'd proven that impossible was just a calculation nobody else had finished yet. And somewhere in the stars, she liked to believe her father was smiling. Because Christmas wasn't just about miracles, it was about making the impossible real through skill, determination, and a little bit of math.